Hey, this is Aaron Perry with Automotive 12. Today we're going to talk about technology and advancement from what we started with in around 1908 to what we're at in 2017. Right here we have a 1920s Model T Coupe. It would have never come with the motor that is sitting in its carcass right now. This one is an old Chevy V8 350. Right here we got a carburetor, which we have long passed. We have spark plug wires, and this would have been a distributor right here. We do not have those anymore. We have coil packs, coils. Our cylinders are usually on top of our engines now, with coils built on top of them, and our coil packs on our firewall. They still have all the same characteristics that we started with in the basics. No matter what, we still got to have a water pump, we still got to have a thermostat, we still got to have a power steering pump, and in this it was called a generator, but right now we call them alternators. We had everything nice, easy, and accessible. Anyone could do their own work on them. You didn't have to have scanners. You could literally listen to what you were looking for your problem. You had a misfire, and you just started pulling your plug wires until it didn't change. Sometimes you got zapped, but you weren't paying $100 an hour to have your car worked on. So right here, our carb, the way it worked, fuel line comes in from the back, it goes in right here. Your filter, instead of being underneath the vehicle or in the tank, was actually right here off the carb. It would come right here. This carb is more of a quadrajet. It's got an electronic choke instead of manually. Usually you had to pull a cable, and it would pull this back, which would open this up, and it would open this up, give it air, and you give it 2 pumps on the floor, and you'd hold it to the floor to start it. You'd have to prime it just like you're priming your weed whacker. You literally had to pump, prime, start. See, we still have to have valve covers. All of our valve train is still inside there, just a lot more advanced than what we had. You see here on this engine there was an oil pressure sensor, one, and we had one that would be our coolant temp sensor, and that is literally the only 2 sensors on this engine. You pull those off and it still runs. You put plugs in them, you can still run no problem. 2 wires for a distributor at best, and that was just a positive feed off the battery. And we can move into something like 1980s. So we went from about 1908 to 1980. We're literally using the same block. That block was probably closer to the 50s, the one I was showing you, because they started out with a single cylinder, 4-cylinder, and they were only pushing about 22 horsepower. The Chevy block used the same block from 1953 to 97. They used the same block. So again, right here, only thing they've really changed, you got more advanced carburetor. So here again, electronic choke, where it just grounds and power. It literally heats this up, warms this, warms your fuel. As soon as your engine's warm, then it can warm your fuel. Then your choke can be shut off. All this was originally for early fuel injection, which is EFI. That's the acronym for it. Just a couple wires off your distributor is right here. That's all you're running. Horrible gas mileage. You could drive to Nanaimo on a tank of fuel that was like 80 cents a gallon. So now we're paying $1.30 a liter. They didn't care about it, not until the 80s when they went into a fuel strike, when they had to start bringing lead out of the fuel, did it become a problem. Every pre-engine from 1984, you could get a whole lot more horsepower than you could have in the 80s. Due to the fuel strike, they decreased the horsepower to decrease the fuel consumption of it to make a better fuel economy. That's why we have such fuel efficient vehicles to this day. And we'll move on to something like a 2012. Now we have a 2014 Nissan Altima. And this is what technology has done for us. Instead of having a key, the only part of the key is that. It can only get you into the driver's door. It will not start the engine. This fob right here communicates with the computer inside to tell you that it can start. It's for anti-theft purposes, gives you push button start. Now you can still steal a vehicle even if it has one of these, due to it is just a signal that it sends. If you can repeat the signal off of your cellular device or your computer, you can still hack the computer system because it's just like Bluetooth. It will not pick up on your phone, but if you have the right technology, it can do that. Right here, you really can't see anything underneath the engine. All you can do at home pretty much is change your battery. If you're lucky, check your transmission oil right there. To do your own oil change, yeah, you can still check your own oil. That's no problem. But they make it impossible to check. And it is so clean because this car has no miles on it. Under here, you cannot see a water pump. If you look down, on the other cars we just saw previous in the video, you can get at anything. You can get at the exhaust manifolds. Here you have to take half the engine bay apart to get to anything. Every single thing has a wire going to it. Everything's on a sensor now. Anything that changes within a couple of millivolts will set an engine light for you. So right here we've got low pro tires. That was not usually a thing with nitrous in there. It keeps them cooler, keeps them at a regular tire level, and it can only expand a couple of pounds per side, so it doesn't set your tire light. Better for speed, better for stability. You can't really wipe out if one tire is low, because of these, there's a sensor inside that tells you one tire is low, so there's not really an excuse that way. Here we've got all LED lights. Usually they flash. Well, it's light out. Yeah, they still flash. Here it's all halogen and LED, or no halogen, sorry, all LED light, from your headlight to your blinkers. Let's see. Inside it is complete leather interior, navigation, push button start. I'll show you how that works in a second. We've got our trunk comes up all automatically now, and this is 2014 or 2013 car. Now they have a sensor underneath. If your fob is close enough to the vehicle and you walk up or you hit unlock on your way out and you swoop your foot underneath, your trunk opens on the Ford Escapes anyway. Lots of car manufacturers usually try and do the same thing, so each car offers a similar product, so they won't go with one car over the other due to one piece. Right here they've got a lockout. You can no longer get locked in trunks. That's a safety feature. So if you get in there with the wrong people, beaten up and thrown in a trunk, hey, guess what? You can still get out. Or if it doesn't have that, you can open the seats with a pull tab, so you still can't get locked in a trunk. Right there, that's the console. If you open that up, you can see inside the back seat. It's just an armrest. Right here we've got child locks. So it's kind of like what they use on a cop car. You can open it from the outside but can't open it on the inside. Shut that. Now if you had your child in here, now it's open, now it's locked. As soon as we shut it, if someone was on the inside, you can't open it up at all. You can open it from here. That's safety precautions that are pretty standard in vehicles these days. Now we're getting into hybrids where you're literally running on a couple of batteries. Your fuel consumption is great. You use it to take off and that's it. So you get over 3 months out of driving on one tank of fuel on the average person. that goes to work and comes home in a day, or goes grocery shopping and comes home in a day. With the push button start, you just have to have your key fob anywhere near your vehicle, foot on the brake, and just push the button, and it adjusts the seat for whoever was in here last. All your navigation hands-free, because that's what you should be doing nowadays. You're not supposed to be on your phones while driving. That causes accidents. 6-speed automatic transmission instead of a 60-speed standard. You still got your paddle shift right here and your slap shift right here, so you can still race it around like a hot rod. But it just goes to show the technology that we've had, where before, if you wanted to race around, you were literally in a standard. Now you have an automatic. You pull into this right here, drive, but you're in sport mode, and you can drive it around like you're in a standard vehicle. Technology that we're getting into, you're getting into air shift. So on a hot rod, if you're driving, you step on it, it's an automatic, and it just shifts for you. Except it's all air controlled, so as you're going, you cannot miss a shift because it's creating a vacuum, which is creating a suction and an air. So where we're going with technology is we have traction control. 1980s, you better have good tires and be a good driver. If you started to hydroplane, you wiped out. If you started to spin a tire and you weren't comfortable, you were going to wipe out. Now, unless you turn your traction control off, you touch the gas and you start to spin a tire, and it balances out your tires. It will not let you accelerate. It's all drive-by-wire. There's no longer a cable that goes from your gas pedal to your carburetor. It is a wire. It is a feed that goes through your computer to let you know that you can get fuel to your engine. So it will sit there at an idle if you're spinning a tire. Turn your traction control off, you can still race around and have a good time. Other than that, we've got traction control, navigation. This has all built-in navigation. Most of them do nowadays. With the hands-free law, every vehicle you can pretty much see, most of the base models are even coming out with it. It is where our technology is going. You walk in, everything's Bluetooth. It's the lower model cars are more fancy than the highest model car in the 1990s. It is still higher. We're going to go into fuel consumption on these. We're getting probably about 8 liters to 100K on the highway, and probably 11 to 12 in town driving. So we got traction control now. Everything that we have on the engine and transmission is all on sensors. Our oxygen sensors that are on here, if it changes just a little bit, which your car would never see that it's running lean, your car, you might never notice a difference drivability wise. It will still let you know that it will still let your computer know that you're running leaner than it usually is. The newer cars, if you don't tighten up your gas cap tight enough, it will set an engine light or an evap emissions light. The ABS systems on here, it's all hooked in your traction control module. When you start to slide from locking your brakes up, it starts to equally distribute braking and will stop the pressure so you don't wipe out. 1980s, you just hit a pole. You'd lock them up. Everything on here now is disc brakes. Before it would be drum and disc if you were lucky, or drum and drum. So your stoppability on these, very good. 1980s, if you had a drum on the back of it, you could lock it up, and if you're trying to mess around in your car, you could lock your shoe right up and wipe your car out. You'd snap them. Here, you can't lock them up. Your caliper sees, but you know that previous to driving. On this car, you don't have to pump the brake. Your ABS does it for you. Older vehicles, you have to pump the brake to act as your ABS. With newer cars, we have airbags everywhere. You can, if this car was running and in drive, you could almost walk up to the front headlight area. There should be about 4 airbag sensors from here to the center. You could walk up and kick it, and it would send off the driver's side airbag. They're super sensitive, and an airbag only takes millivolts to set off. If you don't disconnect your battery while taking your airbag out, you can blow it off on yourself. If you touch the plug with your fingers, the oils and static electricity off your hand can set an airbag off, which is kind of scary. Right here, there's airbags in your seats. There's airbags, so both sides of your seat. Some of them have top pillar, so if you roll your car, you don't bounce your head off the top pillar. So everything now is meant for our safety and kids' safety. Back seats are now have airbags in the back seat, so you can't get, or so it's less likely to be killed in a T-bone situation. So now we're going to talk about turbos on vehicles. They're better for fuel economy, better for power on a gas engine. You can get the same horsepower out of a small displacement engine like a 4-cylinder or a V6, the same as a V8 or a V12. On a diesel, they are very sluggish without them. They run off boost. In a diesel, you don't have spark plugs, you have glow plugs. The glow plugs are only used for the initial start. In an engine, spark plugs are used all the time. Diesel is compression, gas engine is spark. Turbos on gas engines can improve your sound. It's a sound deadening device. On diesel as well, it can count as your muffler, as your sound deadening device. Fuel economy is insane, and power you can get out of them is insane. So we're going to move over to this. So if you look right here, this is the turbo on this big puppy. It is classified as a small turbo for the size of engine that is on here. I usually push around 15 pounds of boost on this on a pull. No more than 20 ever. I don't think I've pushed. In a smaller engine, you don't usually push more than 8 to 12 pounds. 12 pounds is kind of your top out point where you can blow your cylinder head right off. Here, if you look on it, there really is not much electronics going to the engine. You got your alternator, which is going to charge your battery. All this stuff is due to auxiliary lighting on my deck. Same sort of exhaust on diesel as there is on gas. Still some beautiful welds on there. It's cheaper fuel-wise to drive a diesel. It is better on fuel, but what you save on fuel, you will spend in repairs. They're more reliable when you keep your maintenance done on them, but when something goes, it's usually twice or 3 times more expensive. It doesn't usually equal itself out by the time the few repairs you pay on that is much cheaper than paying for one big repair on this. We got all of our LED lights. Everything now is LED. These are halogen, but they're used in the dark, so they're used no more than a couple times a month. So hybrid vehicles is what we're working towards in the future. We have hybrid. We want electronic vehicles. No gas consumption at all. Tesla has come out with a couple of them. The one fastest car in the world actually is completely electronic, no fuel needed. So hybrids and electronic is what we want. We have a vehicle right there. Literally gets like 4 miles to the gallon. Right here we got a diesel. This has quite good fuel economy. Diesel is a byproduct of gas, so this is better for the environment than that is. But then we got these two cars. We got a Nissan and a Mazda. Great fuel economy in them, but we want better. This is leaving a carbon footprint for us. We want electronic. So no fuel consumption at all. The fuel out of these two vehicles are burnt through catalytic converters, which helps our carbon footprint, but we want no carbon footprint. That's what we're working towards. Thanks for watching.